Thank you for joining Dr. James, Rini, and I, the Curiosity Conduit, for a look behind the curtain of letting destiny deliver. With 47 years of experience as a practicing psychotherapist, Dr. Rini brings profound insight into the dimensions of consciousness. I bring my own lens as a retired law enforcement officer, now immersed in the study of psychology. Together, we invite you into a dialogue where destiny meets awareness and curiosity leads the way. Today, we will discuss the eighth pathway, which falls under action. This conversation may lead to feelings of inspiration and curiosity, and it could also create some inner movement. That's all welcome. Life will reveal your destiny through all opportunities you keep yourself available for. So allow yourself to stay open and let's see what destiny delivers. So starting this off, I'm going to read the eighth pathway, which says, act in ways that counteract self-doubt and fear so that it doesn't turn into self-sabotage. What is meant by that?
Well, one thing that is implied by that is that it's very normal and natural to doubt oneself. And that the doubt in itself doesn't legitimize us being less than. And therefore, a more appropriate strategy is, how can I counteract self-doubt? So that's what I mean about you want to act in ways that counteract self-doubt. And one of those things may be, you may doubt you're good at something, but you go ahead and let yourself do it anyway. As opposed to when people doubt something, they then avoid it. That way they don't embarrass themselves or humiliate themselves, but in that you're giving into the doubt rather than challenging it.
So I like that. And that's what I like art a lot of the time is it helps with this. There's a lot of people who say, I can't draw, I can't paint. You literally can. Anybody can. They can put it on a paper, put a pen on a paper, put a pencil on a paper, put a crayon to a paper, right? Anybody can draw. Anybody can put paint on a piece of paper. And whatever happens can be considered art. But their mindset is, oh, I can't do this, for fear that whatever they put down is not going to look realistic. And that's not realistic, right?
Well, see, that's another thing, is fear is a form of doubt, but it's a form of doubt that has bad consequences in our imagination. Like I say, people suffer from STIs, suffering through imagination. And it sabotages us because, one, if we doubt ourselves and we don't take action, that's sabotage because you're preventing yourself from something that you wanted to become. And then fear creates self-sabotage because in protecting ourselves from the things we fear, the very thing that we fear will happen in a way that we didn't expect.
That's so true.
Now there's real fears that we need to fear. I mean, you don't want to drive down the highway, down the street 100 miles an hour. That's a healthy fear. It's the fear that we create through our imagination that's a problem. The what ifs.
Yeah, I mean, fear is a friend in the first circumstance that you have to,
As opposed to hypothetical.
and in the imagination.
In the imagination.
And within the imagination lies your belief systems, right?
Your mindsets.
Yes, your mindsets and how you think about spirituality, which is the opposing force of fear, correct?
Faith.
Faith. Okay, so faith is the opposing force of fear.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to move on in this unless you had something more to say to that, because I think it all ties into this next portion.
Okay.
Okay. Doubt inhibits the unconscious and makes it less available to the conscious mind. Self-doubt interferes with the ability of both minds to be their best. Saying both minds. Conscious mind, unconscious mind, right brain, left brain, all of that together.
Well, here's one thing I'll say to start. The unconscious mind does not discern fantasy from reality. I'll give you a practical everyday experience. When you're asleep at night and you're dreaming, you think it's real. You don't know it's a dream until you wake up.
What about lucid dreaming?
Okay, there's exceptions to everything. Most people don't lucid dream. Most people don't even remember their dreams, let alone lucid dream. Okay, most people's experience is while they're dreaming, they think it's real. That's why they wake up and go, oh, glad it was a dream, or, oh, shucks, it was just a dream, because the unconscious doesn't discern it. That's why we can live vicariously through other people's lives or through movies or on screens and that kind of stuff, because at some level we experience it even though it's just a fantasy. So when we doubt ourselves, it then tends to, like, test anxiety. What does test anxiety do? It blocks you from having access to the information. Test is over and then all the information comes to you. So that's why doubt inhibits the flow. It interferes with the flow of information back and forth. So trusting yourself then allows that flow to be much greater.
Yes.
I'll give you an example, clinical. I'm sitting and I'm going to do hypnosis with a client for smoking cessation. And I'm thinking there, oh my God, all I'm thinking consciously is there's no way, this person is too messed up. There's nothing I can do for them, plus they're using it as self-medication. Then I thought to myself, it's not my conscious mind that I rely on to come up with the therapeutic interventions. It's my unconscious mind. So that then let me let go of that doubt. I don't care what I'm thinking consciously because I know my unconscious will come through. And of course it did. So that trust in myself, that trust in my unconscious allowed me to quickly just throw those doubts into the garbage can. So I will always tell myself, well, my unconscious mind knows what to do. It doesn't matter what my conscious mind thinks.
This is true. I've actually tested this theory, but it was this fact for me in my circumstance, starting in, it was social psychology class. And I went through and I read material, but I didn't read it again. It was just one time through. I was testing it. Now, I had gotten to a point in the class to where it really didn't matter what I got on the final. I was going to pass with a good grade. So I tested this theory. I went through one time, and I started to, you have multiple choice. And there was like five different questions that you had to answer in paragraph form. And when I immediately read it, I was like, I don't know this answer. And I was like, no, I believe the answer is there. And I closed my eyes. Thankfully, the program didn't flag anything that watches me, because it's online learning, and because they record the whole thing, so they would have just seen me with my eyes closed. But looking up the answers in my brain, soon enough, probably within 10 seconds or so, which sounds very fast, but when you're sitting there and just allowing things to happen, it kind of seems longer. All the answers came to me on every single one ace of class, and I believed it.
And that's because you didn't let your conscious
I
mindset
didn't.
rule the day.
That's correct.
Instead, you adjusted. Wait a minute, I do know this. Let me take some time and find it.
Yeah, I was so proud after that test. It was super neat. I was like, man, that would have been cool to use at different times, but it's okay.
Trusting oneself is much better than doubting oneself. And let me add one more piece to that. When you have a good sense of self, that's when you can trust yourself. If you're denying and projecting and being defensive and always blaming other people, you're not going to be able to trust yourself because you're not working with a full deck.
No, so I 100% agree with you, because I wouldn't recommend just anybody to go out what I just said that I did, because there's a lot of work, a lot of things that had to happen and be in line for me to do what I did with that classwork.
Right, to know that,
Yes.
this got to be in there somewhere based on my whole learning experience.
Right, and it was.
But yeah, you have to do the work on yourself to get to the point where you can trust yourself, and then reality test it. You have a hypothesis, and then you see whether you're accurate or not about yourself. But I think it's always good to challenge oneself as a way to, get to know yourself, have better self-knowledge.
So I would like you to read this one.
The best antidote for self-doubt is self-knowledge. With self-knowledge, you become more objective about your own strengths and weaknesses, and therefore resistant to the doubts imposed by the ego and others. So how do you attain self-knowledge? People read self-help books and they, listen to podcasts and all these things that they do, which is helpful in terms of understanding psychology. But one of the best ways to gain self-knowledge is see the effect that you have on other people.
Yes, this needs to be said every single time we record.
And the other part is to be able and willing to challenge your own mindsets and then host and honor some of these things. And the other part is, I know I saw a movie once, I think it was about a golfer. He was a kid though at the time, and he had a dream about becoming, a professional golfer, and his father, quelched that very quickly. And this other guy who was all for him becoming a golfer, and how he said he had given up, because, well, you're giving up very young on your dream, you see, and that's how other people can inhibit us because they tell us, oh, you can't do that, or you're not good at that, or and we listen to them. The ego on the other side can be egotistical in two ways. It can inflate our value and it can deflate our value. So if you have a tendency of seeing yourself less than, then you have to challenge those mindsets for better self-knowledge. If you have a tend to inflate your self-worth, then you also want to challenge that in a way of getting to know yourself.
One thing that I used as a supervisor for years, and this can be something as practical and anybody can use this, is start training the team to get excited when they mess up, because they get excited. Well, okay, I've messed up. Obviously, nobody wants to mess up, right? You want to do things correctly, but getting that mindset of, oh, this is what I got to learn today. I learned something today. So when we would greet each other, me and the individuals, well, what did you get to learn today? Which means, what did you mess up? But you hear the other side of it. I learned this, not about what was really messed up
Well, and that
every day.
and I'll take that even further with the doubt and inhibiting oneself is people don't do things for fear of messing up. And therefore they can't learn how not to mess up.
Right.
And so they create this tremendous void in their life, which then can have ripple effects to other things that they miss out on because they haven't challenged themselves initially.
Well, and if as a supervisor, anybody listening who is a supervisor, this can be implemented because it will transfer into home life as well. Being able to get that mindset, oh, I learned this today. That does transfer into home life. And I've seen this, not only myself, but others who I worked with. So it really trumps what you're talking about, the inaction. They don't want to be the last one who's not learning each day.
Right.
They are engaging and push, and then they say, oh, this isn't so bad. And it does transfer into things into their own home life.
See, and that's where the ego gets in there because the ego doesn't want to be embarrassed. It doesn't want to be ashamed. It doesn't want to be boring. And so it inhibits us. But you have to take action. You have to challenge that. You have to see, how can I improve? What can I learn? What have I learned from this experience? The Jesus Christ of psychotherapy, Milton Erickson, that I've mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
talks about a time when he was in one of his medical classes. And in order to pass the class, you had to perform an autopsy on a cadaver and come up with the cause of death. If you didn't, then you failed the class. And he was talking about all the other medical students that are freaking out and, having all kinds of anxiety because they'll fail the class. He goes, well, if I fail the class, it only means I have more to learn. You see, and he embraced that. I want, to learn more. And in that way, he eliminated the anxiety or the fear.
Yep.
And embraced what he stood to gain. Either way, if I know it, I pass the class. If I don't, I have more to learn.
That was a lesson in itself.
And, going back to how this affects the relationship between the conscious and unconscious is because one mind can dominate over the other. If the conscious mind dominates, it's like two people. If one person's doing all the talking, they dominate. The other person can't get a word in edgewise. And after a while, they'll quit even trying. So if the unconscious mind isn't listened to, after a while, it'll say, well, screw you, or punish you for not listening.
The punishments,
Mm-hmm.
the silent punishments within the mind body.
Or giving you permission to self-sabotage. Well, okay, you want to eat that? Go ahead, eat 5 more pieces of cake too. Because the unconscious is another personality. It's affected. People are affected by how the other person treats them. The unconscious is affected by how the conscious mind treats it, and vice versa. So having knowledge of the two minds and learning how to have a healthy relationship between the two of them then allows you to be a very capable, confident person. And the other part I'll say is the conscious mind doesn't appreciate how it can use learnings in ways that it never thought of. Because like times kids in school, oh, I don't need to learn this. How am I ever going to use this? Or this is stupid. I'd never use that. And I like to use this example when I may have used it before. When I went to school, grade school, like everybody else, you had to write report. And I'd go to the encyclopedia and I'd go, to Venezuela, and then I'd write all the reports on transportation and minerals and this and that. I thought it was a stupid assignment because I just copied it. And I got a grade for it, It met the need at the moment. But what I didn't realize about that was when I then went on in the future learning, whatever I would study, I would write it down. I would make verbatim quotes that I wanted to highlight that I could then read over and over again. And that came from the exercise of having to write those reports, then translate, oh, this is a good way to learn. This is a good way to have this material available for me without having to read the whole chapter, because I've done kind of a condensed version of it, the highlights. Plus the actual act of writing it and reading it also furthered learning. But I didn't think at the time in grade school when I was doing that, yes, this will be a great tool in the future because I'm going to take notes on everything I read. And who knows how many of those things have also found their way into strategies, but I'm not connecting it to something that I learned earlier because it's not as obvious.
I mean, I think they definitely have.
Yeah, we don't know how we're going to use these learnings. Here's another example. I've learned these jokes when I was a kid. I don't know. I'll use one here. Spell silk.
SILK.
What do cows drink?
Milk.
No, they drink water.
But there you go.
Okay. Why did you say milk?
Because of the sound and it sounds like milk. You milk a cow.
Okay, because the unconscious is rhyming and rhythmical, and it's an automatic response. If you stop and use your conscious mind, you know they don't drink milk. They drink water. They produce milk, but they don't drink milk. Okay, but you didn't use your conscious mind once you answered the question because you thought you were right in saying milk, even though it was wrong because you answered it unconsciously without using your conscious input. Okay, and so that's how the two brains then can work together. But my point is, I learned that as a little trick, but I only know now, having studied what I studied, why they work, why that trick works, because it triggers the unconscious to answer the question, and the unconscious is being tricked into saying the wrong answer.
Self-knowledge is necessary in order to have confidence and trust in the self. If you truly have self-knowledge, you know that no matter who you are, you possess positive potential and purpose. Boom, mic drop. That's how I feel about that one. Like, it's good, mic drop. Like, it's really
for itself.
Yeah, it's so good. Boom, it speaks for itself. It's so good. But you can definitely expand upon it for those listening.
Well, the only expansion I would make is that one, it has to be accurate self-knowledge. And two, self-knowledge requires the ability to see yourself in both a positive and a negative way. Like I say, people have problems for one of three reasons. One, they can't see the good in themselves. Two, they can't see the bad in themselves. Or three, they can't see the good or bad in themselves.
Okay, understanding how the unconscious works and trusting its ability to work for you can also help you deal with doubt. By having faith in the unconscious, you can let go of conscious effort and doubt and take advantage of unconscious competence.
Well, the key part is learning how the unconscious works, because we're not taught that anywhere. We're really taught much more how the conscious mind works. And a lot of the skills we develop are conscious skills. We're not taught unconscious skills. And this program, the book, and what we're doing is to help people become more attuned, more aware, and more able to tap the unconscious. And if you can get to the point where you trust it, and you've developed it to the point where you have a lot of unconscious competencies, then you can have faith in the unconscious. Like, walking is an unconscious competence. You don't have to think about it while you're doing it. And I'm sure most every day you get up and don't have any doubt that you're going to be able to walk. Am I going to be able to walk today? I did yesterday, but today's another day, you see. Because it's an unconscious competence. And most of our competence is unconscious, meaning we do it automatically and don't have to think about it. And one of the ways we develop unconscious competence is through repetition. And then by having faith in the unconscious, you are able to tap abilities that you have that you wouldn't otherwise be able to tap because you would doubt they were there in the first place. Like I was saying about when I do therapy, I gave the one example. I can sit here and wonder what I'm going to do consciously, but I tell myself I don't need to know what I need to do consciously because my unconscious mind knows what to do. And it does. And I only know that from experience, from all the times I've trusted it and relied on it. I gave you a case. I don't know if I've done this one before, but so in this case, I had a woman who was brilliant. She had a PhD in computer science, was a venture capitalist, had all kinds of credentials in real estate. But what she was doing was compensating for having been sexually abused by her father and him calling her all kinds of names, you know? And one of the consequences that had is she would not let men get close to her because of the label, the mindset that he gave her of herself. And to protect herself from that identity, she pushed men away. So anyway, during the course of therapy, one day she came in, I confronted her. I said, you know, we never deal with emotions. You're always talking through your intellect. She goes, yeah, I tried that twice, and I was a basket case for 6 months, not going there. So I said to her, well, when you change your mind, let me know. A few weeks go by, you know, and she comes in to say, she goes, okay, I'm ready. And I'm thinking, what's she talking about? I go, oh, when I told her she was ready, let me know. I go, I'm not ready. I'm saying that to myself. What do I do? So I'm thinking to myself, unconscious, help me. And I thought of this emotion that she shared, the one she goes, I feel so much guilt. I feel guilty for feeling guilty. So anyway, I told her to put her hands out like at communion. And I said, okay, what's in your hand right now is guilt. And at first it's easy. But the longer you hold on to her, the heavier it'll get. And of course, your arms are going to get tired, so it's going to get heavier. And we did this for like 45 minutes. And it's all coming to me as we're thinking. So I'm seeing her compensate by, you know, moving and sitting this way and that way, which is kind of like compensating by getting a PhD in computer science and all these other things. And I'm saying you can compensate and that'll help a little bit, but it won't fix it because it'll get heavier. I say, isn't it amazing? Something you can't see and has no weight can be so heavy. You see her getting tired, and I go, and the longer you hold on to it, the more tired you get. So I'm just matching what I'm seeing her doing and using it as an analogy for guilt. And at the end, I said, now put your hands down and let it go and see how good you feel. And that was the end of the session when she left. And again, this is all unconscious because I'm asking my unconscious, help me here. I don't know what to do. And I trusted. I went along with what it, you know, asked me to. And I never used that before and since. But anyway, she comes back the next week and she is high as a kite. And I don't mean on drugs. She told me how she went to the Chamber of Commerce meeting with her friend, and the Minnesota Twins were there because back then the Twins used this, their AA team was here, so it was also where they did their spring training. And one of the girls she was with liked this ball player, and so my client goes up to him and, you know, starts telling him and whatever. She goes, I not only flirted with him, she goes, I flirted with all of them. She goes, I went out on a date with an attorney, and I go, and it was romantic. I did not make it, you know. She's telling me what a great week she had. And she goes, you know, I don't know if it had anything to do with what you did last week. She goes, but I hope, and then the first thing is, I wonder how long it'll last. But anyway, here's the point. At the end of the session, she said to me, when you told me to put my hands down, she goes, what flashed through my mind is I run with weights on my ankles. And she goes, when I take that weight off, I see the world from a completely different perspective. So her unconscious metaphorically was telling me, taking the weight of that guilt off of me allows me to see the world from a different perspective.
Beautiful.
Okay, but my point is, I was telling my unconscious, hey, I don't know what to do here. Tell me what to do. And because we have such a good relationship, it just gave it to me. A year later, she was married.
That's sweet.
And has been happily married ever since.
I like that. It's a good example of trusting your unconscious mind.
And let me add this, part of knowing yourself is knowing yourself unconsciously, which is much harder to do because it's less perceptible than the conscious one. You have to learn how to perceive it.
I will ponder on that beyond this recording.
Both consciously and unconsciously.
Yes, yes, of course, of course,
Of course.
of course.
Who am I talking to?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for joining Dr. Rini and I on this journey behind the curtain of letting destiny deliver. Join us next time as we will discuss the 9th pathway listed under action. Remember to subscribe and like, and questions or comments are welcome below. Now ask yourself, what part of your life might destiny be trying to speak through right now? Keep exploring, stay curious, and remember, destiny isn't something you chase, it's something you allow. Until next time, be well.